Hi there, good morning. My name is Oyen, and I've been somewhat charged with trying to manage the workbook for Level 7 apprentices. So this video, this very short video, is for mentors who are thinking about coming on board and, if you like, working with our Level 7 apprentices at SIPFA to ensure that they record the necessary skills and behaviors that they need to achieve to fulfill the requirements of their apprenticeship whilst working. Right, so let's go get to it. Students are still required to keep a record of what they're doing over 400 hours, so they must still keep this record, and we can talk about that later on. But our focus very much is trying to sort of create something that allows us to keep a record of how they would acquire certain skills and behaviors. Now, because a lot of these skills and behaviors are generic, what we've tried to do is create something of a workbook, and this workbook allows for standardization, of course, between ourselves, structure, so the students know exactly what they're doing, and fairness to make sure everyone is being treated in exactly the same way, and also to give constructive feedback. Then the students, of course, finally upload this onto a SIPFA portal. I think it's Calibrand, but we can talk about that later on. The focus today is really on the workbooks, and this is a working document, so, critique is critical. Right, so let's look at how we've decided to build the workbook. We've built the workbook around the subjects the students are studying. So fundamentally, first of all, let me talk about the certificate first. So at the certificate level, the students do at least 3 subjects. I know they do a few more, but we have created a workbook for audit and assurance, financial accounting, and management accounting. And then at the diploma stage, we have created a workbook for business change, financial management, and financial reporting. So really the idea is that in the first year of the student's life as an apprentice, they will be focused on the workbooks that focus on audit and assurance, financial accounting, and management accounting. And hopefully in the second into the third year of the apprenticeship, they focus a bit more on the diploma subjects that I discussed earlier of business change, financial management, and financial reporting. The skills and behaviors are the same throughout every single workbook, but the idea is that there is growth and the students are if you like, picking up these skills or growing in these skills and behaviors as they travel, if you like, through the apprenticeship. Okay, so let's jump into a workbook, for example. So here's a workbook. This workbook is on audit and assurance. Now, how it initially works, the very first thing you see here, down below every sheet is sort of labeled, and at the bottom you have the skills and behaviors as we go along. But the very first sheet tries to identify a piece of evidence. So the student must have some evidence wherewith we can draw, if you like, these skills and behaviors. And this keeps everything compact. So we know exactly what the piece of evidence is, and we are trying, it doesn't have to be one, it might be 1 or 2, maybe 1, 2, 3, but the key point is we're trying to draw out these skills and behaviors from this piece of evidence. So for example, an audit file. Now an audit file, that the assessor and the line manager have agreed on, that we will use as a tool for tracking the behavior and skills. Now, really, we should be trying to work with the line manager or the person in charge of the student so that we can kind of agree in terms of confidentiality and making sure that the student does have access to the file and can actually, even if some of the information has to be, if you like, covered or redacted or whatever. But the key point is that there must be a piece of evidence to start off with. And this is what the student will upload. But of course, with all of this attached as well to prove that they have achieved these skills and behaviors. So the first skill is building relationships. And you can see what we now have here is a template. And this template really is made up of a question where you're asking questions that relate to the idea of building relationships. Of course, there's a date, and the student will try and give you specific examples. Ideally, we want the student to actually write this up themselves, and then you sort of sit with it and review. When I say review, you can review some of these skills, and the manager can also, or the workplace mentor can also review some of these skills. But the idea is that it's almost a tripartite sort of relationship where everyone is working, and the three parties are working together to ensure that the student has actually achieved that skill. So for example, here you talk about building relationships. It says, this is an audit where you introduce to the team. Were you able to see the audit plan from the beginning? And did you have any idea of what audit tests you'd be carrying out? Was there someone you could ask if you were not sure about tests? Was there a performer you could follow? How did you deal with any difficult encounters when trying to retrieve information? Have you had to work with different teams? Have you spent time with people on the same teams? And what would you consider the challenges of moving teams, and how has that affected your confidence in practice? So I'll pick another skill, communication. This talks about how did you record the audit evidence, how did you share or communicate your findings on the audit evidence with your colleagues, on the balance you work, were you able to present the information to any senior managers? So communication is one we're always trying to get the students to sort of relay their information, of course, via email, via presentations. But the questions, if you see the workbook, will enable the student to, will almost force the student to ensure they look for a way to relay that information. And then we have a range of other skills here, leading and adding value, ethics, we have flexibility and continuous improvement, we have professional skepticism, and we have, and there they are. So really, what we have at the bottom, if you like, are a range of questions that enable the student to sort of try and prove that they have achieved those skills, and for you to sort of review with the student. Now, that's at the diploma level. Again, like I mentioned earlier on, we hope that these slides, the workbooks for financial accounting and audit and management accounting will be done very much in the early year, the first year, second year. I mean, it's not a problem if the student wants to carry on, but we do have workbooks for the higher sort of diploma subjects. This is a management accounting one. Very quickly, it talks about just picking up on, for example, ethics. So here, and decision making. So it says when it comes to decisions within the context of the budget preparation, which did you make without consulting your seniors, and how did you let them know once you had made it? Did you use any decision-making techniques or programs ranging from decision-making trees? So the key point is we're trying to make it as theoretical as well as real and practical. It says during the collection of evidence to verify balance, mention any bottlenecks that arose, and we give examples of these bottlenecks and discuss what the problem was and how the students sort of got around any, they faced any ethical dilemmas or challenges. So you can see that the goal is to make it as easy for yourself, to make it as easy for the student to look for the information, and to connect the information to the piece of evidence. Finally, what I'll do very quickly is just look at the business change. Typically with this, what I thought was good here was that you could almost assign a project of sorts. And when I say a project of sorts, this that allows the student to sort of satisfy skills and behaviors at this sort of higher, more advanced level. So this idea of a review of internal controls, nothing so dissimilar that students at the, I think, AT level 4 do, where they pick a project and sort of try and look for ways to make things better. So this is talking about change management and strategy and policy development. So the whole idea is it would be good if you can then kind of work with the manager in charge to see how we can pick a project of sorts, and then again try and achieve those skills. So like I say, this is a working document. My aim is to keep this under 10 minutes. A working document. You will receive, I hope, the actual spreadsheets for all the different subjects, so to speak, and you can then pick, depending on, of course, in conjunction with the student, asking, what are you doing right now at work? Management accounting? Well, let's do a management accounting workbook. Let's do an audit insurance workbook. And then you then use that workbook to trap the skills and behaviors that the student needs to show as evidence. And you need a piece of evidence really as your, if you like, your starting point, or your starting point, your document, so to speak, and then everything else links into that. Okay, great stuff. So of course we're going to be speaking more about this and talking about this and growing this, but that's the general principle. And so I think really I'm sure some training schedules will probably be will be put together and set up, and then we can take it from there. Okay, great stuff. Thanks very much.